This is TWiT.
A couple of big Supreme Court decisions this week. We were, before the show, Karsten, my producer, and I were debating which is the bigger of the two. I think they're both important. Mobile phone privacy rights were bolstered by a 5-4 decision. Chief Justice Roberts was the swing on this one, saying that law enforcement needs a warrant to get your location records. All this time, all of the major telcos in the United States, the wireless carriers, have had special website portals for law enforcement that any law enforcement, local police, the dog catcher can go to, and for like $1.50, it wasn't expensive, could say, where was Devindra on the night of May 22nd, 2012? And they'll have it. The case was kind of an interesting one. A fella named Timothy Ivory Carpenter was accused of robbing a series of Radio Shacks. That in itself is interesting, but it was he probably could have just waited till they went bankrupt. But anyway, he was armed robbery he was accused of, and the only evidence they had was law enforcement got 127 days of his cell phone records and was able to match up his location with the time of the robberies. He was near those locations each and every time, and that got him a conviction. His conviction has not been overturned, but it's been sent back to the lower court. And Justice Roberts was kind of at pains to call the ruling a narrow one, saying, quote, it focused on the unique nature of cell phone location information, and in particular, they were bugged at the length of time. Mapping a cell phone's location, he wrote, this is in his decision, over the course of 127 days, provides an all-encompassing record of the holder's whereabouts. So I think that's the key, that it's not like, well, was he there during that event? Was he there during that event? But it's everywhere he was. Roberts wrote, as with GPS information, the timestamp data provides an intimate window into a person's life, revealing not only his particular movements, but through them his familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. Wow. Kennedy, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch dissented. But so it was a narrow victory, a 5-4 victory. Kind of, the Chief Justice was the swing in this one. Good news?
I think it's mixed news.
Mixed news. That's interesting.
I think it's mixed news. Yeah. I do this Vox piece. There's some stuff to agree with there. I mean, we've all seen, or maybe have seen, those law shows where it suddenly cuts to this dramatic scene and the person's like, oh yeah, Judge blah 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 owes me a favor, so I can go get that warrant right quick. And I think that it's noted that it doesn't have to just be federal judges who can issue these warrants. It goes all the way down the line. And
all the way down, Aziz Hook writing in Vox says, all the way down the line to a clerk who could write this warrant. It's called judicial shopping. And it's looking for somebody, anybody, a municipal court clerk with no law training can actually write a warrant. So he says it's an issue because of the weakening of the Fourth Amendment, basically.
Yeah, like it, or rather, we may assume that this is a huge protection, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be impossible now, except in the very specific cases where this is needed. So it might make it a little bit harder, sure, but we still shouldn't go, okay, now we're protected in this way, and we don't have to worry about police getting this in maybe cases where it's not necessary, because as we see, like, there are opportunities for them to still get these warrants.
But Ben, was it Ben who thought it was great news?
I thought it was better, but yeah.
Devindra thought it was great news.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'd be really interested to see if this extends farther into the realm of cell phones, because the same doctrine that you're getting too much information applies to any time you search a cell phone. You're getting somebody's entire life is stored in this little device.
Yeah, I think that's really the key, right? That it's an awareness that the cell phone, they're not just tracking location, it's everything tied to that location data and what it means. And what I found fascinating about this is just like that greater awareness. So yeah, it's not a complete fix, but hopefully it'll lead to, other decisions that, I don't know, have a wider understanding of what technology, actually can do today.
Roberts also said, by the way, that it really only affects long-term gathering of data, at least a week or more. And he said, now that's, it wasn't in the decision, but he said that it wasn't ruling on efforts to collect information for shorter spans. So it's possible, I suppose, to interpret it that, well, if you only want where was Devendra last night, that's okay. You don't need a warrant for that. But if you want to know where was Devendra all last month, I don't know why I'm picking on you, Devendra. But
I was gone all last week. Yeah, nobody knows. I was offline, not paying attention to the news.
He seems shifty.
Yeah. Technology companies, including Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Verizon, Twitter, and Google, all filed amicus briefs urging the court to protect the data.
I think it's good. I think this is good news, Leo, in that, like Micah said, it's a small hurdle, right? But it is incremental, and it also establishes a record in a way that it might not have established a record before, or without this kind of needing to get a warrant, right? And I don't think it solves any of the big issues of data privacy and user understanding of like what information they're putting out into the world and on their devices. But I do think that it's helpful to at least force law enforcement to at least, go through some of the basic steps of getting permission to collect this data. I think in that regard, it's a good thing.
Any step we take towards better cell phone privacy, I think, is going to be important. It's interesting that Verizon filed an amicus brief on this, because Verizon famously was the one that used the super cookie, that if you were a Verizon customer, they would sell the information of that super cookie to the highest bidder. So if somebody wanted to track you, basically they could use that to track you. Verizon did stop that practice after the FCC went after them, but they're not known for privacy advocacy.
No.
I
it
think
seems
one good
more
thing
like a visible thing, right? You show that you care about privacy in a certain way. And I should say, technically, I work for Verizon too, so it's all very confusing. I would like it as a company to be better about these things for sure.
Well, I think that's the other thing, is that we're starting to be a little more sophisticated in our understanding of companies, that they're not exactly monolithic.
Right.
There are people at Verizon who support data privacy, and then there are other people selling your information to the highest bidder. And one company can have both.
Whole departments.
Yeah, whole departments. Yeah, Verizon was one of the cell companies, I'm sure, who had this portal for law enforcement to find out where anybody was.
Speaking of that portal, Leo, I mean, I have to be honest with you. I think one of the good things about these rulings is that it puts this stuff out into the public a little bit more, so that people can learn about this kind of thing. Because the thing that I'm being honest about is I didn't know that there was a portal that you could pay a little bit of money and then get someone's cell location data. That's horrifying. And if we know that that was a possibility in the past, like, at least people know that, and know that what this warrant does is changes that. And, maybe we aren't in complete control, but it starts with having this knowledge in the first place. And so when the Supreme Court gets involved, usually it's going to work its way out a little bit more to the public, and they will be more aware of these things. And that's good.
Yeah, and back in May, you might remember the story about Secure Us, which was a company that major business was prison phones. They made a lot of money charging prisoners for phone calls. But they were collecting privacy data from AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, particularly location data, and selling it. So the cell carriers were selling it to Secure Us, and then Secure Us was passing along to anybody who wanted it. And the New York Times broke that story in May. So this is, I think, a good step. And I don't know if this affects Secure Us business, but I hope it does. I would love to see it put him out of business, frankly.
Mm-hmm.